So go ahead and tell me about your ghost story.
All right. So like first kind of like to start off, like I used to be in a ghost like hunting group when I was in high school. So we had a lot of really kind of unexplainable stuff that we came across. One of which there was this like set of woods by where I used to live, and it was called, and it was a cemetery that was kind of associated with it. So the cemetery was called St. Pat's or St. Patrick's Cemetery, and it was a little, very very tiny, kind of derelict cemetery, and I mean it was open to the public, but when I moved there until this time, which was only like 4 or 5 years, like there were significantly less headstones. So I don't know if people like if the bodies got moved or what was going on, but there was always like this kind of folklore around the area saying that back in like the 1800s, there was like a witch that lived like in the woods. It's all Indian burial ground. The Indian burial ground part is true, like because that whole area was like all just Native American. And so, like we were kind of like intrigued by it because it's a very, very creepy, very, very creepy woods. They're very dense. And, come to find out that the cemetery doesn't just stop where the gate is in the back end of the cemetery. It goes deeper into the woods. Like, so this time in particular, like we went at night. And
not to cut you off, but really quick. So like you walk into the cemetery and there's like some tombstones, and then there's like woods, and then you gotta go past the woods even deeper.
Yeah, so like it's a fenced off cemetery, and then there's all like the tombstones and stuff like that. But then there's off to the side like of the entrance of the cemetery, there's like a trail that you go into the woods.
Okay.
And then, so if you go into the woods and then you kind of like curl around to where the cemetery is. I want to say maybe like 30 yards behind the actual cemetery, there's more like older tombstones or headstones in the forest itself, which is just weird because I mean they're very very old, so you can't really tell like any of the writing or inscribing on them, but like they're definitely like headstones.
Yeah.
So before I get to like this particular time, like so back in these woods, there used to be the folklore of a witch, but there used to be a farmer that owned the land and lived back there, and he had a house that he built back there. And there's a pool, a barn, and all sorts of stuff. There was like a weird instances where the house kept catching on fire and eventually burned down. One of the times the house caught fire, his wife was trapped inside the house. And then that whole area was just like very, like people who like Satanists would go back in those woods and like, do weird stuff. And they found a lot of like people that would just commit suicide back there. So it's a very, very strange area. So this particular night we went back there and it was me and I want to say it was like about 5 of us total. And my friend Jan and myself went in first, and it was like dusk at this point. So I want to say it was like maybe like 7:30, 8 o'clock, and sun's going down. So, she has a recorder, and I'm, I think I have like a camera or whatever, and we're kind of just like walking around, just kind of chit chatting between us. And so we go to where the barn used to be, because now it's just kind of a foundation. And you climb down into like where the foundation is, and it's just like this very like acrid smell, just smells like, what a corpse would smell like. Just very, very heavy and very thick. And so she's kind of like standing up, but like a little bit of ways from me. And I'm like in, this little thing kind of like we had like a list of questions we would just ask, like, who are you? What's your name? Because the main thing is you want to like create sound. So like whatever sound can reverberate off your sound, and then you can hear that. That's how you kind of pick up an EVP. So I'm doing that or whatever. And we're back there for maybe 10, 15 minutes. And then she's like, maybe we should like radio everybody and have them come in. I'm like, yeah, probably. And then we hear something go. And we're like, what was that? And we're like, hey. And we're like, whoa, what was that? And like, it was like very, very distinct. And so we got on the radio, like, you guys can like come in now. And then like maybe 25 minutes later, like everybody came back because they had to like walk from their cars to where we were. So there was, I mean, that could have been, if somebody else was back there with us, it could have been that. But it just got, that was kind of the starting point. And so they all came back, and then we kind of officially started the investigation. It got nighttime at this point, and me and my two friends went back to the barn area where we were earlier, and I jumped back down in there and was kind of doing the same questions. And they were probably closer to like the middle of like the little clearing of where everything is at. And I'm like asking questions, and I hear like the leaves and stuff like rustling like right above, like kind of eye level. That's how far like it goes in the ground. Like eye level was like the ground. And I hear people like walking like all around me, but like there's nobody. Like I'm like I have a flashlight, like nobody's around me. And I see like my friends kind of like off a little bit, like chit-chatting. And I just hear like someone walking like in my like perimeter. So I'm like, this is strange. So I get out of there, and then like we start walking back, like just going deeper into the woods. And so we were walking east, and the woods started getting like denser, but like to the point of where like normal trees had thorns growing out of like the trunks.
Yeah.
Like regular trees. And it was like, we got to a point where we could not, it was just like bramble and like thorn trees, and just it blocked everything. And so we're like, okay, that's very strange. And then we kept hearing like inaudible whispering like all around us. And like my friends, we got it all on recording as well. And we kept taking photographs. And in each photograph, there was this like bright pink like orb like somewhere. But then if you looked at the pictures again, you would see like somebody kind of like looking up behind of a tree. But like it was like a kind of like a half, you can kind of see like half of like their face. It was the creepiest thing ever.
Was it like a silhouette or was it like full face?
I mean, you see like this much of someone's face, but like you see like an eye glowing. Really? And it's like, it was so weird because you see like this bright pink thing. You're like, okay, but then you kind of like look a little bit closer, and you're like, oh. So then, we couldn't go any farther, and so all right, we'll just go back. So we started walking back west, just immediately coming back the way we were coming. We left originally, and so there's throughout the whole area back there, there's like old cars and just like garbage and stuff like that. And there was like an old hood of a car that was like very rusted. And so at the time, like my one friend Chris, very big dude, walked on it, no problem. My friend Marty, another really big dude, walked on it. Me, like half their size at the time, stepped on it. My foot went through it, but like it was in a way to where like it didn't match the size of my shoe. Like I don't know how like my foot went through it, because like my shoe was like caught, like my ankle was like almost around my ankle, and and that could have been just like whatever. So I was like, get it out. And then we get back to the clearing where everybody was, but the way we entered the clearing was if we were entering from the back end. So if we were walking east, we entered from the east. And we were like, where that, like, it like kind of threw us all off. And then it was a clear night. And then it started getting windy and then lightning randomly. And then you just start hearing crows like everywhere. And it's like, I want to say at this point, it's like 11, 12 o'clock at night. And you just start hearing crows like cawing, and it's windy. And then you start hearing like this whispering, like just all over the place. And I think the reason why we left that night was because my friend Marty, who I had mentioned that we walked on that car hood, he was kind of standing behind us a little bit, but then we saw him standing in front of us, like in the clearing, like going deeper into the woods. And he like looked at us and then just walked deep into the woods. But he was standing behind us the whole time. And we're like,
Jesus.
we're like, okay, like we need to go. So then we left, and my friend Stacy had this giant 3 scratches on his back, like just going down his back. And then so we leave, and then we get to the set because we had to walk past the cemetery to get back to our cars, and there were just crows all on the telephone wire, just like cawing, like a bunch of crows. And it was like so just like it was such an uneasy feeling. And like, you know, like there was always like this like lore to that whole area back there that this witch or whatever like used to live there, quote unquote, turned into something evil. Like it wasn't necessarily a ghost anymore, but it was more like evil. But there was definitely like a lot of things back there. Like you just feel just presence all around you. And it's, some of them are whatever, you know, it's just like, okay, yeah. But then you feel this like very heavy sensation in your like chest always, like when you're back there. And it's like an uneasy feeling, scared, sadness. And it's to this day, like, because we went back there several times. You know, we would go back during the day, we'd go back at night. One time the police came, and it was during the day, and the cops were like, "You guys do not belong back here." And we're like, "Why?" He's like, and he kept on like looking like behind us, like into the woods. And he's like, he's like, "You guys don't." He's like, "Just don't come back here." He's like, "What do you do?" So there's something definitely like about that whole area that was just like very, very uneasy. And you know, that like, a lot, we've been back there several times, and a lot of the stories are very the same, where it's like you hear like someone whispering and like kind of like luring you back into the woods, like more like where we were that one night. And I think just seeing like our friend that was standing next to us, like kind of like come with me, like back in here. That was very, very, very off-putting.
Yeah, I think if I would have saw that, I would have just noped right out of there.
Yeah, we were like, okay, like we're gonna go. But yeah, that was probably like the most exciting and scary thing that we've ever had to deal with. Because normally, like ghost hunting is like fishing. You know, you sit somewhere and you just look at the camera and that's it. You know, you might get some, you might not. Whereas this was like, we were guaranteed all the time to get something strange that we could not explain, you know, like sounds or, you know, every time we'd go back there and record something, we'd always pick up like male voices. And like sometimes they'd have like accents. Like one time we heard like a German accent, kids, it never failed. Like we would always get something back there, and like we'd always get a lot of photographs as well, which was cool, you know, but like we'd always like wanted to know like what the story was behind it, you know, because I mean it was always very vague, and it was like, did somebody live back there that was like evil, or you know, like, because like the whole story with the witch that was supposedly lived back there was she was torturing people trying to escape the South from the Underground Railroad. So she would like take them and do whatever like she would to them, and then kill them essentially. And then the people of the town at the time was called Shields, but then it changed to Wadsworth later on. They hung her back in the woods, and then they just put her body back there and just put a slab of like a rock where she was buried. And the story goes that the farmer took the rock and then used that as like his front stoop for his house. And then that's why he had so much bad luck back there.
God. What, you know, I guess you don't have to say what state if you don't want to, but I mean, you're more than welcome. Like, is this like in the Midwest or down south or?
Oh, it's in the Midwest.
Midwest? Yeah.
Yeah.
Super, man. It's, I didn't know that you've seen stuff. Do you still have any of those photographs or EVPs or anything like that, or?
If we still had any of those, I think my friend Chris, who was the proprietor of the ghost group, would have that stuff, because we had it all on like digital stuff like that. And I mean, that was back in like 2004, 2005.
Sweet, huge digital cameras.
Yeah.
Get 3 on 1.
Yeah, so I mean all that stuff. I mean, every time we went back there, it was like because if we'd have like a string of like, let's go to this, you know, house and investigate, and it'd be boring, like I said. And if we ever wanted to like have a night where we're like, all right, well, let's legitimately scare ourselves and like, get some really fun stuff, like we would go back there. But there was also a risk involved, mainly because like a lot of like I said, Satanist people go back there and do whatever they did. So I mean, there'd be people back there sometimes, or there would be like physical hazards, like like the junk from the cars or whatever. And then it's trespassing because it's like private property that we would be going on. And then whatever else would be back there that would just want us to stay.
God. Well, man, I really appreciate you sharing that spooky story. That was a lot creepier than I thought it was going to be honest.
Oh, no problem, man. I appreciate it.